Did you know that pancreatic cancer kills more people every year than breast cancer? Yet most have never even heard its early symptoms. This disease is called the silent killer for a reason. By the time it's diagnosed, it's often too late. But here's what they don't tell you. Many of the warning signs start months, even years, before diagnosis. They're subtle, easy to miss, and that's exactly why we need to talk about them. Because if you're over 60 and ignoring certain changes in your digestion, energy, or even your urine, you may be missing the only chance to act in time. In this video, we'll break down 8 specific signs that your pancreas might be in serious trouble, and more importantly, what to do about them. This is not just information, this is prevention. Let's start with the very first and often overlooked sign: hiding in your bathroom. Sign number 1, dark urine, your body's first signal. You might not think twice about the color of your urine. After all, it changes with what you drink, right? But here's the truth. If your urine consistently turns dark yellow, amber, or even brown, despite drinking plenty of water, your body may be sounding an early alarm. Pancreatic cancer often begins by blocking the bile duct, the narrow passage that drains waste from your liver into your intestines. When that duct is blocked, a compound called bilirubin builds up. And instead of exiting through your stool like normal, it starts leaking out through your urine. That's why you might see a tea-colored tint. Not once, but for days. It's not dehydration, it's not a new supplement, it's your liver and pancreas being forced to reroute waste in a way they were never meant to. And here's the most important part. This symptom often shows up before your skin turns yellow, before your eyes look jaundiced, before anyone, including you, suspects cancer. If your urine has stayed dark for more than 3 days, even while drinking normally, it's time to act. Call your doctor, ask for a liver panel and an abdominal ultrasound. It's quick, painless, and may give you the lead time others never get. Coming up next, we'll talk about a kind of abdominal pain that most people ignore until it's too late. Sign number 2, tummy or back pain that hangs on. Not all stomach aches are created equal. The pancreas sits deep in your abdomen, tucked behind the stomach and surrounded by nerves. When something goes wrong, like a tumor forming, it doesn't scream. It whispers through persistent, low-grade pain. This pain often begins as a dull ache in the upper abdomen, but what makes it different is how it behaves. It radiates straight through to the back, sometimes forming a band-like pressure. And unlike indigestion or bloating, this discomfort doesn't go away with antacids, and it doesn't shift based on what you eat. Instead, it lingers, especially when you lie flat, especially after meals. The problem? Most people chalk it up to getting older or to sore muscles, but pancreatic cancer doesn't care about your assumptions. When tumors grow in the body or tail of the pancreas, which they often do, this type of back pain becomes one of the first and only clues. And by the time it intensifies, the disease has usually spread. So here's what to remember. If you've had recurring upper abdominal or back pain for more than 2 weeks with no clear explanation, don't ignore it. Don't wait. Bring it up to your physician. Ask whether imaging of the pancreas is appropriate, because pain that comes from deep inside doesn't show up without a reason. Next, let's look at a symptom that disguises itself as something harmless, i.e. fullness and bloating after just a few bites. Sign number 3, bloating and early fullness. After small meals, imagine sitting down to a meal, taking just a few bites, and suddenly feeling like you've eaten a full Thanksgiving dinner. That sensation is called early satiety, and it's one of the most overlooked signs of pancreatic cancer. Here's why. When a tumor forms near the pancreas, it can begin to press against your stomach or intestines. At the same time, the cancer may disrupt digestive enzyme production. The result? Your food moves more slowly, breaks down less efficiently, and sits heavier in your system. You might feel bloated for hours even if you barely ate. You might lose your appetite without knowing why. And over time, you might start losing weight, not because you're dieting, but because your body is no longer absorbing what it needs. Many people blame this on age, stress, or common digestive issues. But if your meals have become shorter, smaller, and more uncomfortable, something deeper may be going on. Don't ignore it. Persistent bloating that doesn't respond to diet changes or antacids is not just an inconvenience, it's a potential warning. Ask for a gastrointestinal evaluation that includes enzyme function and imaging of the pancreas. Let's move on to the fourth sign. One that your doctor can sometimes detect with a single touch, but is often missed unless you know to ask. Sign number 4, swelling in the gallbladder or liver. This one doesn't cause pain, it doesn't make noise, but it's happening beneath the surface, and it tells a very specific story. When pancreatic cancer blocks the bile duct, bile begins to back up. The first place that pressure shows your gallbladder. Normally the gallbladder is small and soft, about the size of a small pear, but when it can't drain properly, it swells. Slowly, quietly. The same thing can happen to the liver. As bile accumulates, the liver becomes enlarged and inflamed, a condition known as hepatomegaly. You might not feel it at first, but over time you may notice a subtle fullness under your right rib cage. Or your doctor may feel it during a routine checkup. What makes this so critical is that imaging can catch it before symptoms escalate. A simple abdominal ultrasound or CT scan can reveal swelling in these organs, often before cancer spreads further. If your doctor notices liver enzyme changes, unexplained weight loss, or even minor jaundice, ask them directly, could this be related to the pancreas? Should we check the bile ducts? Because when gallbladder and liver changes show up together, the clock is already ticking. Next, we'll look at something that sounds completely unrelated to cancer, but could be your body's silent alarm: unexpected blood clots. Sign up to 5 unexpected blood clots in the legs or lungs. Blood clots aren't always random, and they're almost never innocent. Most people think of clots as something that happens after a long flight or during recovery from surgery. But in reality, one of the earliest signs of pancreatic cancer can be a clot that appears out of nowhere, especially in the legs. Pancreatic tumors release chemicals that quietly shift your blood into a clot-friendly state. This condition, called hypercoagulability, can begin weeks or even months before any digestive symptoms show up. And that means a clot might be the first and only clue your body gives. You might notice one leg swelling more than the other. You may feel warmth, tightness, or soreness that worsens when walking. Some people dismiss it as a pulled muscle, but if the swelling persists or seems to move, you could be dealing with deep vein thrombosis, a clot in the deep veins of your leg. The danger escalates if a piece of that clot breaks off and travels to your lungs. Suddenly, it's not just a leg issue, it's a life-threatening pulmonary embolism. Shortness of breath, chest pain with each breath, and a pounding heart rate can strike with little warning. And in many cases, the source traces back to the pancreas. That's why any unexplained clot, especially in the last 6 to 12 months, should raise a red flag. If you've had a clot without a clear cause, talk to your doctor. Ask whether cancer screening is appropriate, because while the clot may be treated, the real threat may still be growing in silence. Up next is a sign that looks like a fever, but behaves nothing like one. Sign number 6: fevers, chills, and night sweats without cause. A fever is usually the body's battle cry. It rises when we fight infections, flares with viruses, and breaks when healing begins. But what happens when the fever doesn't follow the rules? In pancreatic cancer, fever isn't triggered by germ, and it's driven by inflammation, the kind of deep systemic inflammation that comes from a tumor blocking your bile ducts or irritating nearby tissues. It doesn't arrive with a sore throat or a runny nose. It doesn't leave after 3 days of rest. Instead, it lingers, it loops, it confuses. You may find yourself suddenly chilled during the day, needing an extra sweater in a warm room. At night, the heat returns with a vengeance. You wake up drenched in sweat, your sheets soaked, your body aching, even though there's no flu going around, and your thermometer reads just high enough to notice. The real warning here is the pattern. This kind of temperature disturbance doesn't behave like a cold, It comes and goes without explanation, often for weeks. Many seniors chalk it up to menopause, aging, or even side effects of medication. But if these waves of heat and cold are new, intense, and stubborn, you should question more than your thermostat. Mention the pancreas. Bring up the possibility of bile duct obstruction. Your doctor can run targeted tests, liver enzymes, inflammatory markers, and scans to look beneath the surface. Because sometimes what feels like a harmless fever is your body's last attempt to get your attention before things turn serious. Coming up next, we'll talk about one of the most deceptive symptoms of all. Fatigue so deep it robs you of your daily life. Sign number 7, unrelenting fatigue. That doesn't improve with rest. We all get tired, but this isn't the kind of tired that goes away after a nap or a good night's sleep. This is exhaustion that owns you. The kind that settles into your muscles, your bones, your breath. It makes simple tasks feel monumental, grocery bags feel heavier, climbing stairs becomes a negotiation with your legs, even holding a conversation feels draining. With pancreatic cancer, this fatigue doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from the cancer stealing energy behind the scenes. As the tumor grows, it competes for nutrients. It disrupts digestion, saps the body's ability to absorb vitamins, and triggers an inflammatory state that wears you down from the inside out. Many people mistake this for just getting older. They assume it's stress or lack of exercise or anemia. But when this level of fatigue shows up suddenly, stays for weeks, and doesn't improve no matter how much you rest, it's time to ask harder questions. Has your appetite dropped at the same time? Have you lost weight without trying? Do you wake up already feeling worn out? These aren't just signs of aging, they may be signs of something much more serious taking hold, silently. If this type of fatigue feels familiar, don't wait. Tell your doctor. Ask whether your pancreas is functioning properly. Request a metabolic panel and pancreatic enzyme test, because when energy disappears without cause, there's always a reason. Now let's turn to the final, and most overlooked, digestive sign that your pancreas may be under attack. Sign: radiate oily, pale, or unusual stools. It's uncomfortable to talk about, but it's one of the most revealing clues your body gives. If your stool has become light-colored, greasy, or unusually foul-smelling, especially if it floats or leaves residue, your pancreas may no longer be producing enough enzymes to digest fat. The pancreas plays a critical role in breaking down food. Without its enzymes, fat passes through your system undigested, and the result shows up right there in the toilet bowl. People often blame these changes on diet, food sensitivity, or even medication. But when your stool becomes noticeably pale, sticky, or difficult to flush, and this happens more than once, it's not about what you ate last night. It's about what your body can no longer process. This digestive slowdown often leads to unintended weight loss, vitamin deficiencies, and a constant feeling of bloating. You might feel full even when you haven't eaten much. You may avoid meals because they leave you uncomfortable, and still the symptoms persist. The danger is that people normalize these changes. They live with them, they hide them, they don't realize that their digestive system is waving a red flag. If these signs are happening to you, or if you've seen them persist for more than a few days, speak up. A simple stool fat test combined with pancreatic imaging can reveal what your body has been hiding. Because when your digestion changes without warning, your pancreas may be warning you without words. Let's bring everything together now with a clear path forward for anyone who's experienced even one of these symptoms. Pancreatic cancer doesn't knock on the door. It slips in quietly, settles deep inside, and waits. That's why it's called silent and why it's so deadly. But now you've heard the signs. You've seen how your urine, your appetite, your stool, your pain, your energy, and even your body's temperature can change. All before a diagnosis is ever made. These aren't random, these aren't age. These are your body's early warnings. And they are never too small to act on. If even one of these signs feels familiar, don't brush it off. Don't wait for the next checkup. Don't assume it'll go away. Talk to your doctor today. Ask for what matters: a pancreatic enzyme test, a liver panel, an abdominal ultrasound. Simple tests covered by insurance. Life-saving if caught early. And if this video helped you realize something you'd ignored, share it. Someone in your life may be dealing with the same symptoms in silence. Hit the subscribe button now. We make health information for people over 60, clear, honest, and life-saving. Because awareness is not enough. Action is what saves lives. What's one sign you've seen in yourself or someone close that you now realize shouldn't be ignored? Let us know in the comments. You never know who your story might help next.